A 19-year-old girl is brain dead, and her family makes the painful decision to donate her organs. But at the moment of surgery, the doctor in charge freezes. Inside the young woman's belly, he sees something that paralyzes him. Rachel was always a girl full of life. At 19, she dreamed of finishing nursing school, starting work, and saving money to travel. She laughed easily, joked about everything, and always told her mother, "One day I'm going to take care of you, Helen. You'll see." But in the last few days, something strange was happening. It all started with mild nausea. At first, she would get out of bed, feel sick to her stomach, go to the bathroom, wash her face, take a deep breath, and go on with her day. She thought it was just a virus or that she had a sensitive stomach. Transtar joked, "Mum, I think I ate something bad. Or maybe it's just my nerves." But the days passed and the nausea got worse. Dizziness set in. She would get out of bed and the world would spin. She had to hold onto the wall to keep from falling. Sometimes she felt dizzy just from getting up from the couch to go to the kitchen. Helen began to worry. "Rachel, you look pale, girl. This isn't normal. Let's go to the doctor." But Rachel, as always, did everything she could not to worry anyone. "Mum, it's nothing. I'm sure it's just low blood pressure. I'll be fine, I promise." That morning, everything seemed the same. Mom was in the kitchen making coffee. Rachel was lying on her side in her room with her cell phone, trying to ignore the discomfort. But suddenly, there was a loud noise, like a body falling to the floor. Helen ran to see what it was and found her daughter lying on the floor of her room. Her eyes half open but unfocused, her face cold, her lips turning purple. "Rachel, Rachel, talk to me. My God, talk to me." She shook her heart, but Rachel didn't respond. Her body was limp, unresponsive. Fear overwhelmed her. My God, someone help me." Helen ran out into the street, screaming for help. The neighbors heard her. One of them, Mr. Roberto, ran to help carry Rachel to the car. On the way to the hospital, Helen's crying seemed endless. "Hang in there, my girl. For God's sake, hang in there just a little longer." The car sped through the streets, honking its horn and running red lights. Rachel lay in the back seat, her face pale, her chest rising and falling more and more slowly. Helen's car stopped as best she could in front of the hospital. She didn't even bother to park properly. She got out running, opened the back door with her hands shaking, and tried to get Rachel out by herself. "Help, please. Someone help me, my daughter. My daughter isn't breathing properly." Donna Eleanor's eyes were filled with tears. Her voice was almost a cry of desperation. She tried to lift her daughter's body, but Rachel was limp and heavy, as if her body had lost all strength. Some people at the door of the hospital looked scared, but it was Nurse Valeria, who was at the reception desk at the time, who came running when she heard the screams. Valeria didn't think twice. She threw her folder on the floor and went straight to them. "What happened? How long has she been like this?" Helen, agitated, could hardly speak. "Josh, I thought it was just dizziness. She fell down. I brought her here as fast as I could. Please do something." Valeria knelt on the floor next to Rachel. With a quick movement, she placed 2 fingers on the girl's neck, trying to feel her pulse. Valeria's forehead began to sweat. Weak pulse. But it's still there. "Come on, I need a stretcher here fast." 2 more paramedics appeared, running with the stretcher. Meanwhile, Valeria was already checking Rachel's breathing, adjusting her head and opening space for air to pass. "Mom, come with me. Don't let go of her hand now. Yes, stay close by. She needs to know you're here." Helen climbed onto the stretcher with her daughter, clutching Rachel's cold hand and tightly, as if she could pass life through that touch. Against the white walls of the hospital, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard loudly. Nurses made way. People watched from afar, frightened. Helen was shaking all over. "Stay with me, daughter. Please don't leave me. Rachel, for God's sake, don't leave me alone." Valeria glanced quickly at the mother, trying to remain calm, but inside her heart already knew the girl's condition was serious. Very serious. With one hand, Valeria held the bag valve mask to help Rachel breathe. With the other, she pressed the emergency button on the wall. Call Dr. Alex code red in the emergency room. And so, amid internal sirens and tears, the fight for Rachel's life began there. The sound of alarms was still echoing through the hallways when Dr. Alex Walker entered the emergency room. He walked quickly, his coat half open, his eyes alert, and his face serious. Everyone there knew him for his direct but always humane manner. He was never one to shout, but when he spoke, everyone listened. "What do we have here?" he asked as he put on his gloves. Valeria, still standing next to Rachel, replied almost without breathing. "Female patient, 19 years old. She arrived with loss of consciousness, weak pulse, signs of hypoxia, no known medical history. Her mother brought her in emergency." Alex approached the stretcher. He paused for a second, looking at Rachel's face. Such a young girl, pale, her mouth half open, her chest rising and falling with difficulty. "We're going to intubate and prepare for a CT scan quickly." Helen in a corner of the room was shaking with fear. Her hands covered her mouth, her eyes red and swollen. "Doctor, please, she's going to be okay. She's my daughter. She's never had anything wrong with her. Never, please." Alex turned to her. He looked her straight in the eyes. And in that look, there was firmness, but also a weight, a concern. "Mom, we're going to do everything we can, but I need you to take a deep breath and trust our team." "Yes." She just nodded her head, as if clinging to the last hope. Minutes later, in the CT scan room, Alex was following the tests. His eyes darted from side to side, analyzing the images on the screen. The room was completely silent. The sound of the CT scan machine sounded like a giant clock. Every second felt like an eternity. When the final images appeared, Alex froze. There, right in the center of Rachel's brain, a dark area, a clear blockage, an obstruction, a thrombosis. The blood stopped, the flow interrupted. Alex closed his eyes for a moment. He took a deep breath like someone gathering strength before delivering news that he knows will break hearts. He returned to the room where Donna Elena was waiting, hunched over in her chair, her hands clasped together as if in prayer, though she couldn't say a word. Alex knelt in front of her. "Helen, we've finished the tests, and I need to be very honest with you." She looked at him with that look of someone who already knows but still has hope. His daughter had suffered a cerebral thrombosis. It's a serious blockage. The blood stopped circulating in a significant part of the brain, and that may have caused serious damage. Helen's world seemed to come crashing down in that second. "Thanos?" "No, not that, my girl. It can't be." She began to cry, hiding her face in her hands, her whole body shaking. Alex put a hand on her shoulder. His voice was low but firm. "We're not done yet. We're going to do everything in our power. I promise you. But the situation is very delicate, and the next few hours will be decisive." And there, in that cold corner of the hospital, one of the most difficult battles of their lives began. Right after the diagnosis, the medical team sprang into action. Inside the emergency room, the atmosphere was tense, heavy. You could almost feel the air standing still. Dr. Alex didn't leave the room, putting on his gown, gloves, and giving quick instructions, but his voice was broken as he tried to maintain control. "We're going to do the thrombolysis protocol now," he said urgently. 2 residents rushed to prepare the medication. Valeria, the nurse, held Rachel's hand tightly while monitoring her heartbeat. "Come on, girl. Come on. You're young. Are you going to make it out of this?" he murmured almost like a prayer. Tar Eleanor could see everything through the small glass window. She clutched a rosary between her hands so tightly that her fingers were turning red. My God, save my daughter. Please take my life, but save her." The medication was administered. The minutes that followed seemed like hours. The heart monitor beeped. The numbers went up and down. The pressure dropped, came back. The oxygen levels in the blood dropped. Alex looked at the test results. No improvement. Let's go to mechanical ventilation. Prepare for intubation again. Another rush. More wires, more tubes, more nervous voices. The sound of the machine began to fill the room. Now Rachel was breathing with the help of machines. Time passed. 1, 2, 3 hours of attempts, and the expression on the doctors' faces began to change. Before it was tension, now it was resignation. Alex ordered a new CT scan, which was done immediately. The images arrived. He analyzed them in silence, paused, took off his glasses, and ran his hand over his face. Valeria entered the room and saw his expression. Dr. Alex took a deep breath. The damage was too extensive. We couldn't reverse it. The words seemed to weigh tons in his mouth. He got up, walked through the door, and went into the hallway where Helen was waiting, sitting on the floor with her rosary lying beside her. When she saw the doctor approaching, she already knew, but she still got up, staggering, her eyes filled with tears. "Doctor, please. She's going to get better, right? She's going to open her eyes. She's going to smile at me. Tell me yes, please. She's only 19 years old." Alex crouched down to her height. He took Helen's hands, which were shaking uncontrollably. "We still have a few more tests to do. We're trying everything, but it's very serious. We'll have clearer answers soon." The hours passed as if time had stopped inside that hospital. Dr. Alex stayed until the last second, trying to find a way out. With each test, with each attempt, hope faded, but no one wanted to give up. The machines remained on. Rachel's body was warm with her breathing, forced by the machines, but her eyes were closed and her brain was silent. Then came the final test. The one feared by everyone there, the test of brain death. Alex asked them to turn off the sedatives. They waited for nothing. They did the reflex test, nothing. They stimulated her with pain, no reaction. The brain flow test came next. Clear images showed that there was no longer any blood flow in her brain. Alex lowered his head, covered his face with his hands, and took a deep breath. He knew that this was the moment he hated most in his entire profession. He left the room, walking slowly down the hallway, until he found Helen, her eyes already swollen, sitting on a bench, her body leaning forward. She looked at the doctor with what little hope she had left, but one look from Alex was enough for her to understand. He knelt in front of her once more. "Helen, I'm so sorry. We did everything we could. But your daughter is brain dead." The scream that came out of Helen's throat was so loud, so desperate that it could be heard throughout the hospital. "No, my daughter, no, it can't be. She was here with me yesterday. We had coffee together. She hugged me before she left the house. This can't be happening. It can't." She threw herself on the floor. Her hands pounded her chest as if she wanted to tear the pain out of her. Her whole body was shaking. Valeria tried to approach, but Alex shook his head. It was a mother's pain, and in that moment, only she could feel it. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, a car slammed to a halt at the entrance. Ethan, Rachel's boyfriend, got out running. His face was red, his eyes filled with tears. He ran inside, shouting, "Rachel, where is she? Tell me, where is she?" When he saw Helen lying on the floor, her screams of pain cutting through the air, Ethan froze. His heart seemed to stop beating for a second. He knelt beside her. "What happened?" No, tell me she's okay." "She's okay, right? Please tell me it was just a scare." Helen turned with her eyes full of tears, her voice broken. My girl is gone," and the two of them remained hugging each other on the cold floor of that hallway, crying together as if the world had ended there. After a few minutes of silence and tears, Dr. Alex took a deep breath, got up, and asked Helen and Ethan accompany him to a private room. The room was small with white walls and a wooden table in the center. There were 2 chairs on one side and one on the other. Alex sat down slowly, took off his glasses, rubbed his tired eyes, and looked at them both with a look that mixed sadness and respect. Helen continued to cry quietly, her face swollen. Ethan stood next to her with his hands over his face, unable to say a word. The doctor began to speak in a low but firm voice. "I know this is the worst moment of your lives, and I wish none of this were happening. But there is a conversation that unfortunately we have to have now." He paused, looked at them both, and continued. "Rachel was a young, healthy girl with a strong heart and other organs that are still functioning well thanks to the machines. And that is why we wanted to know if if your family would like to authorize organ donation. Donna Eleanor slowly raised her head, her eyes red and swollen. Organ donation. Alex nodded with a painful look. I know it's difficult. I know. But there are people, children, mothers, men, people who are on a list waiting for a chance to live. And Rachel could be that chance. She can save lives. She can give hope to other families who are going through pain similar to yours. Silence filled the room. Ethan closed his eyes tightly. He shook his head as if trying to push the thought away. Helen brought her hands to her chest. The crying returned, but this time it was crying mixed with memories. She was always like that. A good girl who cared about everyone, even the street dogs. She always told me that she wanted to do good, to help people. Alex stood there alone, listening without pressing, waiting for his moment. The minutes passed. Ethan took Donna Eleanor's hand. The two embraced, cried together, and after a long time, with her voice broken and her eyes closed from the pain, Helen said almost in a whisper that at least she saved someone else. Alex took a deep breath and placed his hand on hers. I promise we'll take care of everything with the utmost respect and love that she deserves. And in that room, while the two of them continued to cry, the most difficult decision of their lives was made. The preparation room was silent. All that could be heard was the sound of the monitors and the soft hum of the respiratory equipment. The atmosphere was heavy, filled with the sadness that hangs in the air before a procedure like this. Dr. Mark Dawson, the surgeon in charge of organ removal, entered with a serious look on his face, as he always did before every delicate procedure. He was an experienced man, but that morning even he seemed more pensive than usual. Before starting, he did what he always did. He paused for a few seconds beside the patient. He looked at Rachel's face, so young, so fragile, lying on that stretcher, her hair falling down on either side. He took a deep breath and spoke softly, as if she could hear him. We're going to do everything with the utmost respect. Yes, your mum, your boyfriend, everyone is thinking of you, and you're going to save other lives today. Mark then began to review the latest tests. He checked the papers, the levels on the machines, the heartbeat. Everything was as expected for a case of brain death maintained by artificial support. When he approached Rachel's belly to begin cleaning, that's when something small happened. Almost imperceptible, but it made the doctor stop immediately. He frowned, looked again, and out of the corner of his eye saw a very slight movement right there in her abdomen. Like a spasm, a small ripple under the skin. He stood still for a few seconds, trying to understand if it was just his imagination. What was that? He murmured almost to himself. He ran his hand slowly over her belly and again felt a slight, very slight movement. His heart raced instantly. He looked at the nurse standing next to him. Valeria, come here now. Look at this. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Valeria came closer. She stood there for a few seconds watching, and then with her eyes wide open. She replied in a low, trembling voice, Doctor, it looks like there's movement inside your belly. Mark took off his gloves immediately and without wasting another second, pressed the emergency button on the wall. Call Dr. Alex now and have them prepare an urgent ultrasound quickly. The room that had been quiet was now filled with people coming and going. Nurses were entering, equipment was being connected. Monitors were being brought closer to the stretcher. Dr. Mark, his hands trembling, kept his eyes fixed on Rachel's belly. Rachel's belly, and for the first time in many years of practice, he felt a chill run down his spine. There, right there, inside a body considered lifeless. There was something still fighting. The sound of Alex's footsteps echoed through the hallways as he hurried over. Called by Mark's emergency call. Alex's face was serious, worried. As soon as he entered the preparation room, he saw his colleague standing next to the stretcher with an expression that mixed surprise and disbelief. What's going on, Mark? Why did you call me so suddenly? Mark looked at him with his eyes wide open, his hand still resting gently on Rachel's abdomen. Alex, you won't believe it, but I felt a movement here. Alex paused for a second, trying to understand. Movement in the abdomen. Mark just nodded. Without wasting any time, Alex asked for the portable ultrasound machine to be brought in. Valeria ran to the next room and returned with the equipment, still not quite understanding what was going on. While they turned on the machine, Alex lifted Rachel's blouse slightly, applied the cold gel to her belly, and placed the transducer. The room was completely silent. Everyone held their breath, staring at the screen. The device took a few seconds to adjust the image, and then it appeared, small at first, but clearly there inside her, a tiny heart beating fast, insistently. "Oh my God," whispered Valeria, covering her mouth with her hands. Mark couldn't take his eyes off the screen either. She was pregnant and with twins. Alex stood still for a few seconds, his gaze fixed on that little dot beating on the screen. His throat closed up. He took a deep breath, ran his hand over his face, and confirmed in a low voice, almost a whisper, "Yes, Rachel is a few months pregnant, but the babies are alive and their hearts are beating strongly." The atmosphere in the room changed immediately, a mixture of shock, disbelief, and unexpected hope. Alex looked back at Rachel with tears in his eyes. This little girl, even in this situation, still has life inside her. Everyone stood there, not knowing exactly what to feel first. But one thing was certain. From that moment on, everything changed. As soon as he confirmed what he had seen on the ultrasound screen, Alex didn't think twice. He left the room almost running, his heart pounding in his chest. Down the hall, the other doctors looked at him confused, not understanding why he was in such a hurry. Alex went straight to the waiting room where Helen and Ethan were. She was still sitting in a corner with her face covered in tears, staring at the floor, and Ethan was standing, pacing back and forth, his eyes red as if he didn't know what to do with so much pain. When they saw the doctor approaching them like that, they both looked up immediately. "Doctor, what's going on, please? What's happening now? Why are you in such a hurry?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. Alex took a deep breath, approached them, and with his hand still covered in ultrasound gel, he stood right in front of them. "I need you to listen to me very calmly, please." They both opened their eyes, expecting more bad news. Alex then crouched down a little, bringing himself to their height, and said slowly, "We found out that Rachel is pregnant." The silence was complete. Helen brought her hand to her mouth, her eyes filled with surprise. "My girl's pregnant." Ethan took a step back as if he had been punched in the chest. "Pregnant? No. No, not that. That can't be. We were together, but we didn't know anything. She never said anything, never had any symptoms. I mean, nausea, dizziness. My God." She ran her hands through her hair, paced back and forth, breathing fast. "I should have noticed. How could I not have noticed this?" Alex put his hand on her shoulder. "No one knew. She probably had no idea herself, but the baby's hearts are beating. They're strong." Helen was crying, but now it was a different kind of cry, mixed with fear and hope. Alex then took a deep breath, looked at them both, and spoke firmly. "That's why we stopped the donation process immediately. Now the focus is on protecting these children and doing everything possible to give them a chance at life." Ethan stared at the doctor with tears in his eyes and said in a low voice, almost a whisper, "She's leaving a little piece of herself here. A little piece of her is alive." Donna Eleanor squeezed Ethan's hand tightly. The two embraced, and for the first time that day, amid so many tears, a small but genuine glimmer of hope appeared. Alex took a deep breath, still feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, and asked Helen and Ethan to sit down again. The two of them still had read, their hands trembling, trying to understand what was happening. The doctor pulled up a chair, sat down in front of them, and with a calmness that only he could have in moments like this, he began to speak. "Listen, I know this is all very difficult. I know it seems like a nightmare, but now we have to think about what to do from here on out." Donna Eleanor, her hands clasped together as if praying, looked at him with eyes full of tears. "Yes, doctor. The baby, or rather the babies, have a chance of surviving." Alex nodded slowly. "Actually, they're twins. 2 girls, still very small. From their size and the tests, We estimate that they were about 4 to 5 months old at the time of the accident. Ethan covered his face with his hands. He took a deep breath as if trying to process it all. 2 girls, my God. We didn't even know about one. And now there are 2, Alex continued. I know it seems like a miracle, and in a way it is, but the reality is that Rachel's body, although without brain activity, is still functioning thanks to the machines, her heartbeat, her breathing. Everything is now artificially controlled, and that may give us a chance. He paused, looked them both straight in the eyes, and finished. The plan now is to keep Rachel's body functioning for as long as possible. We're going to take care of her as if she were still conscious, feed her through a tube, control her temperature, monitor her heartbeat and the girl's heartbeats, monitor her lungs, her kidneys, everything. We're going to do everything we can to maintain a safe environment for the twins until they are old enough to be born. Helen couldn't hold back the tears, shaking her head as if to say yes, but her whole body was shaking. My daughter, my little girl, is fighting for her daughters, even if she doesn't know it. Ethan approached her, grabbed her hands tightly, tears streaming down his face. We're going to be with her, Helen, I promise. I'm going to stay here every day, all the time, with all 3 of you. Alex ran his hand over his face. He took a deep breath. It's going to be a difficult, long, risky battle, but as long as there's a heartbeat, as long as there's life, we're going to fight. And in that room, with a mixture of fear, love and hope, a new reason was born for everyone to keep standing and fighting together. From that day on, the entire hospital entered a new routine. It was no longer just a bed with a brain-dead patient. Now it was Rachel's room with 2 lives growing inside her. Alex gathered the entire team, doctors, nurses, nutritionists, physical therapists, everyone. Each one knew that from that moment on, every detail, every bit of care could make the difference between life and death for those girls. They began feeding her through a tube with carefully calculated controlled nutrition measured hour by hour. Every gram of protein, every meal of fluid, everything with the twins in mind. Valeria, who had been by Rachel's side from the beginning, became almost a guardian angel for her. She was the one who arrived early, did Rachel's hair, put cream on her skin to prevent bed sores from lying in bed for so long, and arranged the sheets. Good morning, my girl. Look, another day of care, huh? Your daughters need you, and we're here to make sure you stay strong. And as she did that, Valeria talked to her as if with each word. Rachel's body could hear and react in some way. The monitors next to the bed never stopped beeping. Blood pressure, oxygen, heartbeats. The sound of the machines became part of the music in that room. From time to time, the doctors did ultrasounds to see how the girls were growing. During each test, Alex stayed there with a tense look on his face, watching the screen, looking for any sign of danger. Here is the little heart of one, and here is the others. They're reacting well. They're growing. They're strong, very strong, he said with a tired but genuine smile. Helen practically started living in the hospital. She brought her pillow, kept a blanket at the foot of the bed, and sometimes slept sitting up with her head resting on the edge of the stretcher. She held her daughter's hand and ran her fingers slowly over it as if she wanted to warm the cold skin. Ming Jija, you've always been stubborn, and now you have to be even more so. Hang in there, my love. Just a little longer for them. Ethan also went every day. He stayed by the bed for hours telling Rachel stories, talking about the things they planned to do, the places they wanted to see. Do you remember our plan to go to the beach? Yes, I do. Now it'll have to be the 3 of us, you, me, and the girls. So stay for them and for me too. The nurses changed her position several times a day to prevent bed sores. They bathed her carefully, cleaned her face, and took care of her eyes so they wouldn't dry out. With each shift, someone would come in and say the same thing. Hang in there, Rachel, hang in there. Rachel's case became one of those that the entire hospital followed silently, hoping and praying, waiting for the next ultrasound. Because there in that room filled with wires, monitors, and tears, there was still life. At first, it was just among the intensive care team, the doctors and nurses who were closest. But soon the news began to spread room by room, floor by floor. It was impossible for anyone to pass by that room and not ask about her. "Peg, so how are the twins today? Was there any change in their heartbeats? Did you do the ultrasound this morning?" Even the cleaning staff who passed by every day with their carts of supplies stopped at the door for a few seconds, clasped their hands together, and said a silent prayer. The security guards, who normally hardly ever spoke to the patients, began to ask about Rachel every time they ran into Alex or Valeria in the hallways. In the employee break room during coffee, the topic was always the same. Can you believe it? A mother brain dead, and the two girls still fighting inside her. It's a miracle. It has to be. Valeria, who never left the room, became almost like an older sister to the babies. She would walk in smiling, even though she was tired from working so many shifts in a row. "Good morning, my warriors. Another day, huh? And you too, Rachel. You're not going to leave me alone in this, are you, Alex?" No matter how hard she tried to keep her tone professional, she could no longer hide how much the case was affecting her. She often stood at the door of the room, staying for a few seconds, just looking in silence with a lump in her throat. This little girl is teaching us about resilience and love without even opening her eyes. She once said in a quick conversation with Mark in the hallway. Helen, seeing this affectionate gesture from everyone, began to feel a little comfort amid the pain. Sometimes someone from the lab would come by just to leave a little note with words of support. Other times they left flowers at the window of the room. Even doctors from other specialties who weren't even part of Rachel's team began to visit the ward just to peek in the door and wish her strength. It was as if the entire hospital was breathing along with those two tiny lives. Every heartbeat, every good result was cause for celebration, and every scare, every slight drop in blood pressure made everyone hold their breath. Rachel's story became a chain of faith, hope, and humanity within a place accustomed to seeing so much pain. But there, in that room, they found a real reason to believe that it was still possible to win. Days turned into weeks, and Rachel's room became almost an extension of Helen's home. She hardly ever left. She had a corner just for herself with an old wooden chair, a blanket always folded over the back, and a small bag with a few simple things: a hairbrush, her daughter's face cream, a small bottle of perfume that Rachel used, and the rosary. Always the rosary. The mother's routine was always the same. She got up very early, made the makeshift bed in the corner, and went straight to her daughter. She grabbed a clean cloth and gently wiped Rachel's face, removing the sweat from the night. She smoothed the hair that fell on her forehead and carefully applied the cream to the girl's pale face. "Sora, my girl, look at us. Today brought you that cream." She would smooth the hair that fell on her forehead and carefully apply cream to the girl's pale face. "Sora, my girl, look at us. Today I brought you that cream you liked. Remember, the one that smelled sweet? The one you said was good for your skin." She massaged it in slowly with her fingers, as if the touch could awaken something inside her daughter. Then she combed her hair. "You always liked to leave the house looking pretty, didn't you? So no messy hair. Your girls are watching you, and they have to see you looking pretty." While she did that, she talked, telling stories. She talked about when Rachel was a little girl, how she learned to walk. Her first words, "You know, my love, I'm staying here. Remember when you were little and I braided your hair for school? You used to get mad because you said I pulled too hard, and now look at us. Here I am again, taking care of you like I used to." She would hold her daughter's hand and stay there for hours, sometimes in silence, other times singing softly, a lullaby. From time to time she would reach out to Rachel's belly. She placed her hands lovingly and spoke to her granddaughters growing inside. "My princesses by force, yes, you have the bravest mother in the world. She is here. She is fighting alone, waiting for the moment to see you." The nurses passed by. Some stayed at the door looking and hiding their tears. It was impossible to see that scene and not be moved. At the end of the afternoon, when the sun came through the window, Helen would lean close to her daughter's ear and whisper in a soft, broken voice, but full of love, My girl, your babies need you. Don't go yet. Please stay just a little longer. And so day after day, in that mixture of faith, love, and desperation, she continued to take care of herself, waiting and believing that somewhere deep down her daughter could still hear every word. The days went by, and Ethan, that same boy who had previously been unable to enter the room, now practically lived there too. He arrived early and always with the sunken eyes of someone who hadn't slept well, with an unshaven beard and a lost look in his eyes. He sat down next to the bed, pulled the chair as close as he could, took Rachel's hand, and stayed there for hours. Sometimes he just looked at her in silence. Other times he cried quietly, but mostly he talked. He said everything that was stuck in his chest. You know, love, here I am thinking how stupid I was, how I didn't notice anything. You telling me about the dizziness, the nausea, and me thinking it was just stress, or that you were making up excuses to skip class. He bowed his head, took a deep breath, and continued. I should have taken you to the doctor. I should have taken better care of you. I should have paid more attention to you. Please forgive me. Forgive me for being so blind. The tears flowed, and he wiped them away with his shirt sleeve. Now here I am talking to myself, holding your hand and asking God to bring you back, even if only for a little while, just to open your eyes, look at me, scold me, anything. In many moments he would get up, approach her belly, put both hands there and start talking to the girls. Hello, my little ones, it's me, your dad. Look, I know you don't really know what's going on, but you can be sure that I'm going to take care of you like I should have taken care of your mum. I promise, I swear that you will never ever go without anything. And there, with his face pressed against Rachel's belly, he cried. He cried like a child. I know you are still very small, but stay there a little longer. Yes. Hold on tight, please, for her, for me, for everyone. Helen often stood at the door, watching the scene with a heavy heart, looking at that boy who had once been so carefree, now with his shoulders slumped, carrying a guilt that was not his alone. And in that room among machines, cables, and whispered promises, Ethan continued day after day, swearing that even though he was afraid and didn't know how, he was going to be able to handle everything. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. Every morning, Alex entered the room with the same expression, focused, attentive, but with a look increasingly filled with hope. He did everything he could to be the one in charge of the daily exams. He grabbed the ultrasound, prepared the gel, and even though he was tired from so many sleepless nights, he never stopped talking lovingly to Rachel and the little ones. Let's see how my warriors are doing today. Helen, always by his side, held her daughter's hands as she looked at the screen with tears in her eyes. Ethan didn't move from there either. He already knew the exam schedule by heart, and every time Alex came in with the machine, he would pull his chair closer to the bed. Every day the image on the screen showed a new detail. At first only the sound of the little hearts, that quick tum-tum, then the first clearer images, the little feet, the little hands. Alex even joked. Look at that. This one looks like she took after her restless mother. She doesn't stop for a second. And this other one, look how calm she is. Just watching everything, the whole team started giving the girls nicknames. Some called them the brave ones. Others said they were the two miracles. And with each ultrasound, the same reaction. Sighs of relief, quiet applause, and discreet smiles among the doctors and nurses. Mark, the surgeon who almost performed Rachel's organ extraction, always stopped by the room, looked at the reports, and shook his head in amazement. This is incredible. These girls are stronger than many people I've seen around here. The nutritionists adjusted Rachel's diet every week, thinking about how to ensure every ounce of growth for the twins. Valeria didn't miss a single detail in their daily care. Don't stop talking to them. Okay, doctor. They like to hear your voice. They're used to it now. Alex smiled, even though he was exhausted. They're not going to let me rest until they're born, are they? And so, between scares and small victories, the miracle continued. Day after day, the two girls grew, fought, and surprised an entire team that could no longer call this just another case. Time flew by, and suddenly there they were in the final stretch. Day after day, the two of them grew, fought, and surprised an entire team that could no longer call this case just another one of many. Time flew by, and suddenly they were in the home stretch. Almost 9 months of pregnancy, months of struggle, faith, sleepless nights, tears, and hope. That morning, the ICU hallway seemed quieter than usual. Alex entered the room with an envelope of test results in his hand, his face serious, but with a different gleam in his eyes. Donna Eleanor, who already knew every expression on the doctor's face, felt her heart race, slowly got up from her chair and walked toward him. "Doctor, has something happened? Please tell me." Ethan, who at that moment was sitting next to Rachel's bed, also stood up with his eyes wide open. Alex took a deep breath, looked at them both, then looked at Valeria, who was also there, and called everyone to come closer. He paused briefly, as if choosing his words carefully, and then, in a firm but broken voice, he announced, "The time has come. The C-section will be tomorrow morning." No one could react. Silence filled the room, as if time had stopped. Then, as if everyone suddenly understood, Helen brought her hands to her face and began to cry. But this time, her tears were mixed with relief, with emotion, with that feeling of someone who, after so much fear, is finally seeing the light. "My God, my granddaughters, my girls, they're going to be born. They're going to be born." Ethan leaned against the wall, his legs trembling. "Tomorrow. Tomorrow. Really, Doctor? Are they ready?" Alex nodded. "Yes, of course, they're still premature. We're going to have to be very careful. But after everything they've been through, they're strong. Their lungs are already mature. Their heartbeats are stable. It's the right time. We can't wait any longer." Valeria smiled with tears in her eyes. These girls were born to fight, and now it's almost time to show the world. Alex put his hand on Helen's shoulder with a look full of affection. "It's going to be a delicate surgery, but I promise you that the entire team will be there taking care of them, as if they were our own daughters." And in that room, amid tears, shy smiles, and tight hugs, everyone understood that the next day, life would write another chapter in a story that no one would ever forget. The last night arrived, and Rachel's room looked different. It wasn't just a hospital room. It was a place full of emotions, memories, and promises. Helen was there with tired eyes, but a heart full of hope. She smoothed her daughter's hair and ran her hand over her face as she did every day, but this time more carefully, as if she knew that night was special. "My girl, tomorrow your daughters are coming. You're listening, aren't you? I know you're listening. They're almost here, and I'm going to tell them all about the brave mother they have." She spoke softly, her voice breaking. Ethan was sitting on the other side of the bed, holding Rachel's other hand so tightly that his fingers turned red. He stared at her as if he wanted to remember every detail of that moment. "Morris, tomorrow we're going to meet our girls. They're going to be born, and I'm going to take care of them like I promised you. And you too. I'll never let anything that's ours be taken away from us." His emotion was overwhelming. Tears fell, but he didn't even try to hide them. Valeria, the nurse who had been by Rachel's side since the beginning, entered the room with a tray of cotton balls and medicine. But when she saw the scene, she put everything aside. She approached, took Rachel's free hand, and without saying a word, stood there with the two of them, forming a circle of love around that little girl, who, although motionless, had brought so many people together. The three remained in silence for a few minutes, just listening to the sound of the monitors, the constant VIP, the air coming out of the respirator. From time to time, Helen ran her fingers over her daughter's arm. Ethan rested his head close to her belly to feel any movement from the girls, and Valeria, with her eyes closed, said a quiet prayer. "Someone is already listening up there. Please take care of them tomorrow. Take care of Rachel. Take care of those girls. Give us the strength to go on." The early morning passed slowly, but no one wanted to leave. Each one held a part of her, as if somehow their love could pass through the skin, the bones, the silence, and reach Rachel inside. And on that last night before the big moment, their vigil was just that, pure love, hope, and a faith that no one else could explain. Morning was breaking. The sky outside was already turning that shade of orange. And inside the room, the three were still there, holding hands with Rachel. Helen was tired, but she didn't move, clutching her daughter's fingers tightly. "My girl, the big day has arrived. In a little while, your girls are going to be born, and I promise you, I'm going to tell them everything you did. All the struggle, all the love, everything." She leaned over, kissed her daughter on the forehead, and with a trembling voice whispered, "If you want to rest now, I understand. But if you can, stay just a little longer. Stay with us." It was at that moment that she felt it, a slight, almost imperceptible, but real movement in Rachel's hand. Helen froze. My God, it can't be. She looked at her hand, then at her daughter's face, then at Ethan. She moved. She moved her hand. I felt it. Ethan, who was holding Rachel's other hand, was in shock. How? Wait, here too. I felt it too. He looked at Helen. Both of them, their eyes wide open, their hearts beating fast, and before they could say anything else, another small movement, this time in her fingers. Helen began to cry. "My daughter, can you hear me? Please, if you can hear me, give me another sign, just one more." And then, as if the world had stopped for a second, Rachel's eyes began to open slowly, heavily, but opening. First just a little, then a little more. Her eyelids trembled, her eyes trying to focus, searching for some light, some image. Ethan put his hands over his mouth in shock, already crying with tears that wouldn't stop. "Rachel, my God. Rachel, you're waking up. You're coming back." Valeria, who had just entered the room, dropped the tray on the floor when she saw the scene. "Dr. Alex, Code Blue, come quick. She's reacting." The sound of running footsteps filled the room. Alex rushed in with the stethoscope already around his neck, his eyes wide open. "What happened? What's going on?" She opened her eyes and moved her hands. "Doctor, she's waking up," said Valeria, her voice trembling. Alex ran to the bed, took out his pocket flashlight, and carefully opened Rachel's eyes. Rachel's eyes carefully observed the reaction of her pupils. And when he saw that her eyes were responding to the light, he couldn't hide what he felt. His eyes also filled with tears. This is impossible," he murmured, almost without a voice. He looked at the team, took a deep breath, and with a smile that mixed disbelief and emotion, he said, "We have brain activity. She's coming back. She's fighting people. She's coming back." The room filled with crying, shouting, hugging. Helen hugged Ethan tightly. "She came back. My God, she came back." And there, in that moment, the impossible happened. In the hours that followed, the entire hospital seemed to be experiencing a mixture of euphoria and disbelief. Alex could hardly believe what was happening. As soon as Rachel opened her eyes, he ordered a full battery of tests, CT scans, MRIs, everything necessary to understand what was really happening there. While the technicians took Rachel to the imaging room, Helen and Ethan paced nervously, their hearts in their mouths. "Doctor, what does she think now? Is she going to be okay?" Helen asked, her voice trembling. Alex, despite all his experience, was still stunned. "I've never seen anything like this. But let's wait for the tests. We have to understand what's going on inside her brain." A few hours later, the images began to arrive. Alex entered the report room, sat down, put on his glasses, and began to analyze every detail of the new CT scan. His eyes scanned the screen line by line, inch by inch. And then he stopped. He froze, his eyes widened, his breath caught in his chest. Mark, who was standing next to him, saw his colleague's reaction and approached him. "What happened? What are you looking at?" Alex pointed to the screen and in a low voice, almost a whisper, replied, The aneurysm that caused all this is gone. It's gone." Mark frowned, pulled up a chair and started looking too. He ran his hands through his hair, unable to believe it. "No, this doesn't make sense. We have the previous tests. The diagnosis was clear. I saw it myself. You saw it. We all saw it. It was there. It was huge. and now there's simply nothing. Valeria, who had entered the room to look for a file, stopped in front of Fino. Upon hearing that, the door disappeared. What do you mean disappeared? Doctor, Alex took off his glasses, ran both hands over his face, and leaned back in his chair like someone trying to process the impossible. There's no explanation. There isn't. But the studies are there. You can't call whoever you want to check what was killing her. It's no longer there. Silence filled the room for a few seconds until Alex, his voice broken, but with a smile that mixed shock and relief, said quietly, almost as if talking only to himself, "If this isn't a miracle, I don't know what is." And at that moment, it became clear to everyone there that they were facing something that medicine could not explain. The room was in silence with only the sound of the monitors, that constant beeping. Rachel was lying there, her face still pale, her eyes closed. But now, unlike the other times, with small movements in her eyelids, Helen, who was sitting next to her, noticed it immediately. She jumped up. "Doctor, she's moving her eyes again. She's going to wake up. She's going to open her eyes." Alex rushed in with his stethoscope around his neck. "Let's see. Calm down. Let me see." And that's when Rena's eyes opened for real. Slowly, still heavy but conscious. She blinked several times, looking confused. She looked at the ceiling, trying to understand where she was. Her eyes darted from side to side, trying to recognize faces. Helen fell to her knees beside the bed. She held her daughter's face with both hands. Tears fell without stopping. My girl, you're back. You're back with me." Ethan, who had just entered the room, stood in the doorway. His heart was beating fast. "Rachel, it's me. I'm here with you." Rachel tried to speak, but no sound came out, her lips trembling. Alex carefully approached her and placed his hand on her shoulder. "Calm down. You don't have to talk now. Just stay here with us. Breathe. Feel everything around you. You're safe, you're alive, and your girls are fine too." Hearing this, Rachel brought her hands with difficulty to her own belly. Her eyes filled with tears. Her fingers slowly traced her now large belly as if she were only just realizing it at that moment. And then came the smile, small, shy, but real. The first time in so many months that her face showed another sign of life, of hope. Eleanor cried softly. Ethan knelt beside the bed and rested his head in his hands. Valeria, standing in the doorway, brought her hands to her face and began to cry too. And Alex, with tears in his eyes, just whispered, looking at everyone there. She really came back. And at that moment, inside that room, there was no one who wasn't completely in tears. As soon as Rachel opened her eyes and that shy smile appeared on her face, Alex knew that his time was running out. His body, despite all the strength he had shown, was already beginning to show signs of extreme fatigue. His blood pressure was rising and falling. His heart was beating very fast, and the machines were beeping more frequently. Alex turned quickly to look at Valeria. "Get everything ready. Emergency C-section. We don't have time." Valeria almost ran down the hallways, called the surgery center, called the anesthesiologist, the neonatologists. The entire team mobilized at the last minute. Helen, her hands shaking, stood at the door, not knowing whether to cry, pray, or run after them. "Doctor, she's going to make it. The girls are going to be fine." Alex grabbed her hands tightly and with a firm look replied, "Now it's up to God and us, but I promise you, we're going to do everything possible." They rushed Rachel to the operating room, still conscious, but weak. Very weak. While the team prepared everything, Alex leaned over her. "Rachel, we're going to bring your daughters into the world now. Hang on just a little longer. Yes, they're almost here. And you've done the impossible so far. Now it's our turn." She tried to move her head, a movement almost imperceptible, but it was enough for everyone to understand that she was there fighting until the end. The operating room filled up. The machines turned on. The scalpel ready. Alex took a deep breath and looked at his colleagues. "Let's do this for her and for them." The incision was made with precision, everything very fast, but with the utmost care. And then a few minutes later, the first cry, loud, high-pitched, as if that little life was saying, "I'm here." Helen, who was waiting outside, fell to her knees, crying loudly when she heard it. "My granddaughter is alive inside the operating room." Alex barely had time to hand over the first one. He had to act again. A few seconds later, another cry, and this time the cry was even louder, as if the two of them together wanted to tell the world that they had won. Alex looked at the two of them, their little red faces, their clenched fists, and with a broken voice said, "Two baby girls, warriors." Just like their mother, Valeria, with tears streaming down her face, took them both in her arms. While the pediatricians began caring for the babies, the entire hospital seemed to be holding its breath. Helen, who was still kneeling on the floor of the hallway, heard the second cry, put her hands over her mouth, her eyes filled with tears, and she simply collapsed, crying like she had never cried in her life. "My granddaughters, my girls were born. They're alive. Thank you, God." Thank you, Ethan, who was leaning against the wall with his legs shaking. Upon hearing the sound of his daughters for the first time, he lost his strength, let himself fall to the floor, and there, with his face hidden in his hands, he cried uncontrollably, "They're here, they're here, they're alive." Inside the operating room, Alex paused for a moment, took off his gloves, and with tears in his eyes, he stood staring at the two girls. One already wrapped in her blanket, her little hands clench, and the other still being cleaned by the nurses. But with that insistent cry, as if she wanted to show the world that she had arrived and that she had won. Valeria, on the other side of the room, wiped away her tears as she performed the first procedures on the babies. Mark, who had been watching everything closely, took a deep breath, ran his hands over his face, and let out a long sigh, as if all the weight of those months was coming out along with that sound of life. Then Alex turned to look at the team, his voice breaking, but with a smile that Jan tried to hide. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have two warriors and a mother who defied everything medicine said was impossible." Hearing that, even the technicians, who normally maintained a more serious demeanor, bowed their heads and wiped their eyes. Helen was the first to enter. She ran to the incubators, looked at her granddaughters, and with a voice trembling but full of love, she said softly, "My girls, you don't even know how long we've waited for this moment." Ethan, his legs still shaking, arrived right behind her. And when he saw the two of them there, breathing, moving, crying, he couldn't hold back. "You are all I have now, without everything." And there, almost at that moment, with the two cries still echoing throughout the hospital, even Alex, that doctor who was always so steady, took a deep breath, lowered his head, and let the tears flow. Because that day, no one could hold back. No one. Months passed, and little by little, Rachel came back to life in a way that no one there could explain. Well, every day, one more step, one new sign, one small miracle. First, she moved her fingers more strongly. Then she began to open her eyes more often, and soon the first movements with her legs and arms appeared. Physical therapy was hard, tiring, full of pain and tears. But Rachel never gave up. Donna Eleanor accompanied her to every session, holding the towel and drying her daughter's sweat. "Be strong, my girl. You've already overcome so much. Now it's just a little bit more." Ethan never left her side either, cheering her on and telling jokes to make her smile. Sometimes he cried in secret, just watching her sitting there, breathing on her own, saying her first words. When she finally managed to stand up, even if it was only for a few seconds, the whole hospital applauded. Nurses, doctors, even other patients. Everyone stopped what they were doing just to see that moment. The two girls grew up strong and healthy, each with her own personality. One was quiet and sleepy, the other restless, moving her little hands all the time, as if she wanted to reach the world. The newspapers soon heard the story. Reporters and photographers began to arrive at the hospital door. The case of the young woman who came back from the dead to save her daughters. Read the headlines. The case of the young woman who came back from the dead to save her daughters. Read the headlines. When Rachel was finally discharged, already walking with help but smiling, the entire hospital came out to the door to say goodbye. Alex, overcome with emotion, hugged her tightly like someone hugging a real daughter. Valeria, crying, carried the twins in her arms. She wanted to be the one to put the first bows in their hair. Elena, of course, couldn't stop thanking God for every step her daughter took. And it was in one of those interviews, surrounded by cameras, microphones, and with her two daughters in her arms, that Rachel, with tears in her eyes and a trembling voice, said the phrase that will remain forever in everyone's memory. Life always finds a way, and I am a witness to that. My daughters are God's miracle. And at that moment, as she spoke and people applauded, you could see in everyone's eyes that no one would ever forget what they had witnessed. And now I want to hear from you. What would you do if you were in Helen's place or in Ethan's place? Would you have made the same decisions? Would you have had the same strength? Leave me a comment below. I'd love to read what you think of this story. And don't forget to click the bell so you don't miss the next videos coming with stories as exciting as this one. In fact, speaking of which, click now on the video that's appearing on your screen. It's a story that has already made many people cry and made them think about life. I guarantee you won't regret it. What would you do if this happened to you? Write your comments. We want to hear your opinion. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.